And I'm Brian Rexroad, and we'll get right back into it here. And I just wanted to do a little of a sort of a brief advisory here, just to get sort of things rolling a bit. It's tax season, and of course, nobody likes to do their taxes, but there is a motivation to do it a little bit earlier than you might have done it otherwise. The IRS has come out with a what they call a taxpayer guide to identity theft, and basically what they're pointing out is that you need to be careful about identity theft as it relates to your tax filing. There has been, and I think the peak was really last year, there was a sort of a peak in fraudulent tax filings that were taking place, particularly in federal returns. And then there was a sort of an incident this year that was detected. I think TurboTax had brought to light around filings on state returns. And basically what these fraudsters are doing is they're filing a return before the legitimate user can file, and obviously they're gonna bake the numbers a little bit so they get a nice big return back, and then you might see that subsequently. So it's a form of identity theft. In order to file a return, you have to have a Social Security number. Now, I read an article that suggested that perhaps TurboTax might have been at fault in the sense that maybe information had been stolen from TurboTax. I personally, I don't think there was any evidence to suggest that. There's a good possibility that end users may have been infected, maybe previous users of TurboTax, or even using other products probably had information on there if they got infected on their computer that would basically give attackers access to that information. So the advice here basically is to make sure that you're protecting, particularly if you're using your own computer, that you're protecting that computer and the information about your tax filings and also personal information like Social Security number to help protect against fraud. But I think one of probably the best ways to protect is to file as early as possible. Okay. Maybe I'm providing this advice a little bit late, but it's still well before April 15th. File as early as possible, and then to hopefully subvert any attempts to file on your behalf.
Yeah, but maybe add two things to that. I think, one, IRS is never going to call you, right? I mean, I think, I don't know if you get those radio spots out here. I live on the West Coast, we get those radio spots. Mm-hmm. And my mom is recently living by herself, mm-hmm. and she's gotten one of those calls. And I preach to her all the time. So
these are fraudsters trying to get information.
They're trying to call you to say, hey, we're at the IRS, trying to verify your claim. Mm-hmm. Can you give me your Social Security number and some other information about you, which is basically ways of getting her identity data. But the IRS doesn't call, right? They're still going to mail you. Mm-hmm. they're still somewhat behind the times.
Well, it's a lot more cost effective to send a letter
Absolutely.
Than to have somebody actually spending time on the phone.
And credits to people that think the government's that on it, to think that that they're going to be calling you even before April 15th for taxes that are due April 15th. So
this is true.
It's a little bit of common sense. And then the second thing that I think I would recommend everybody do, and everybody in my circles I tell to do, is put the 7-year credit block on your credit. That adds one extra step anytime you apply for credit. Mm-hmm. But all that extra step is they're going to call you wherever you're at, say, hey, you're applying for credit. Is this really you? Mm-hmm. And that is so worth it. And it's an easy step to do. You just have to call one of the agencies or companies that do that, and they can institute it for you. They'll do it 7 years at a time. You don't have to worry about it for 7 years.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, that's a good point. Very good advice. And that one of the recommendations, and we're providing the link so that you can go actually and see the detailed recommendations from the IRS, and one of them is to check your credit report each year, but to put the block into place so that it gives you better control around it.
Absolutely.
So you're proactive,
that's right,
preventative as opposed to reactive.
Ounce prevention is worth a pound of cure.
It's a very good.
And the idea of filing early is a great one. If I could just convince my accountant to get mine done early.
Well, good point there, Jim. Maybe you need to give him a tip. So.